Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another special guest on. And this one I think is very special and will be very impactful for all of the listeners and the watchers. Ryan Mason is, I would say, doing amazing things. If you've seen Yahoo's recent article, he was highlighted as one of the top 12 entrepreneurs to watch for 2020. And other names on that list are like Neil Patel and Gary Vee, and Ryan is on that list because he's doing great things. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Terrell, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. First off, congratulations on the recognition. Now, one of the things that I've definitely learned is, getting recognition is not that, okay, you've reached the top of the pinnacle, you can just sit back and kick your feet up. There's more work to be done because now you got more
Absolutely.
visibility. So congratulations and all the best on the work to come.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you hit it on the head there because, one of the things is this is a milestone and what always follows is more work to be done. So I'm super excited for new opportunities and I'm ready to leverage it.
Awesome, awesome. Now, before we jump into your business, let's talk about, your background. What was, Ryan Mason's life before jumping into the deep end of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so it all started, honestly, I like to tell my background, just my family pedigree, because this really played heavy on some of the things that I aspired to do. And, in life, as we all know, it's not linear. So, basically, I had a father who actually played for the professional football for the Green Bay Packers. Also had a cousin who played for the Washington Redskins and a younger brother who was, following my coattails, 7 years younger than me, that now plays for the SEC. But I say all of that to say that, my biggest dream was to go on and follow in my father's footsteps and play professional ball. That is the sole thing that I wanted to do. And like a lot of people, for me, there were some things that were just kind of in my way that just did not allow me to actually do that. And for me, one of the biggest things was, my size. I was always undersized. I remember stories of me going to perform with, just so many people at so many of the bigger schools. And literally, it's so funny because I would look at those guys. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'll run circles around them, and I really would. But when I stood next to them, they looked like a mannequin in the store that was about 6'5". So. That was kind of the beginning of my story, and I was fortunate enough. I didn't go to the school my dream school that I wanted to, but I was fortunate enough, which happened to be one of the better things that ever happened to me, was to go and get a full scholarship to the University of North Alabama, which is a small school in the northern part of Alabama in a city called Florence. So that is kind of where my journey started. And, before I got into business, it was literally that transition was a means to an end for me. And that end, honestly, I went on and I continued to play football. And about 2 to 3 years in, I realized like, hey, I'm spending a lot of time. You know, if you're an athlete, you wake up at what 4 or 5 in the morning. You're working out, and then I'm going to classes as soon as that is over, and then I have maybe 20 minutes to eat, so I'm stuffing my face, and then from there I'm going to meetings, and then we got practice. So now I'm dog tired by the time 6 o'clock comes around, and now I got to study for a big test. It's tough. It's tough, and for me, I felt like a couple of things were happening for me that I just wasn't, happy with. I was burning a lot of time. I wasn't. I was dealing with some political things in the sports world, and for me, I also needed. I felt like it was an opportunity for me to use my energy and my focus and the time that I was spending on the football field towards something that I may be doing for the rest of my life, which I didn't really know what that was, but I wanted to get experience in something, right? So for me, to make a long story short, I needed a reason to speak to my parents and to convince others around me that I am not crazy and I did not flunk out of school. And I needed to justify my thought process for, hey, potentially letting go of a full scholarship.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, how did that discussion go?
Oh my goodness. I'm glad you asked. It's so funny. I remember the first conversation I actually had was with my mom. And this is still after months of me trying to build up courage to talk to anybody about it. But that conversation, in short, went just like this: "You've lost your damn mind." so, so, but I understand. You know, being older now, I definitely understand. You know, and my thing was she always she knew how much effort I put into it, and she wanted to make sure that I was clear on what was going on, and my, you know, and she wanted to encourage me to just keep going, you know. And so the next person, I went to go and speak to my grandfather. And it's so funny because, you know, our grandparents, I mean, he had a soft tone, and he said no, but he said it in the nicest way possible. And I walked away and I said, yeah, maybe I am crazy. so you know, after that, honestly, there was one person that I just refused to talk to, and that was my dad. And that's just because you know, there were several things playing on my heart and on my mind, and, you know, just from our football pedigree and our family, I didn't want to be that person, you know, to give up so fast. And for me, you know, I was looking at it as, hey, I'm not giving up, I'm transitioning, and that's exactly what it was. But I feared for what he may say, or what the family may think. And so basically, just to tell you a little quick story. So one Christmas break, and this is when I had the first idea for my first business, but one Christmas break, I decided to basically just go in and start figuring something out. I started to ramble, and I started to just, you know, dip and dive into some different things, just trying to test the waters to see what I could possibly do to justify this whole conversation. Because if I'm going to talk to, you know, anyone else about it, I need to have a backup plan, right? Well, one day after that Christmas break was over, we're back in school, and I had an idea for a business venture. And after that, I also wanted to get someone else's opinion on if I was crazy or not. So basically, I called about 7 people in the university, all in the College of Business. And I started from the top of the list, from the dean all the way down, and they all recommended me to a good lifelong friend named Dr. Bora. So basically, I spoke with Dr. Bora, and I sat down with him, and I poured my entire life story out to a person that I had no idea who they were. And it took about an hour, and I almost was in tears trying to tell the story. But basically, he told me 2 things after I left that meeting. And he said, for one, you have a really cool idea. How serious about it are you? And I said, I'm 110% in. I'm there. I'm serious. So he said, okay, great. We'll meet up during the summer and we'll work on it. So the next thing he said was, Ryan, it seems like you already have your answer. And I remember walking away from this meeting pissed because in my head, I'm like, listen, I needed you to tell me one simple thing. Am I crazy for thinking about leaving a scholarship, or am I not crazy? Like, he didn't give me that answer. So I went to another guy who was actually I think he was the provost at the time. But basically, I went with him and I poured my whole life story to him for a whole hour, right? Told him the exact same thing. And you know what? He said the exact same thing. It seems like you already have your answer. And at that moment, I couldn't be mad anymore. I said, okay, well, geez, I guess it's time to go talk to my dad. Mm-hmm. And it still took a couple months. But when I finally decided to go and speak with him, my dad said one thing. And he said, listen, I support you 100% in what you do. And that was it. Wow. That was it. That was the end of the journey. And, you know, I walked off the football field and I was happy. And, you know, I had the freedom to use my energy in other places.
Awesome. So now at this point in the journey, like I said, you have the legacy of football with, you know, your father's a player in the NFL, you know, right. Have a cousin that plays, you're in college on a full scholarship playing, and now you've come to that conclusion of walking away from that. And so now becomes, where do you now put all of that energy into? So how did that entrepreneurship journey start to unfold?
Yeah, so it actually started right before, you know, I decided to walk away because I needed to justify some things. And basically, if we go back to the Christmas break, I'm still on scholarship and I'm at home in Alabama. And basically, I'm sitting there in my brother's room while he's playing a video game. And there's a guy on Instagram who's customizing shoes. And for me, I'm just like, oh man, this is cool. He's not drawing on shoes, but he's completely taking apart a shoe and replacing it with like exotic leathers and like ostrich and python and all of this crazy cool stuff. And I said, well, I, I don't know much about it, but maybe I can figure it out. I'm crafty enough. So here, so I get the knife and I start cutting up shoes. The first shoe I cut up was an old Air Force One. And my brother's like, he's just looking at me like, okay, you must be really bored. And I never forget my mom and dad coming in the room at separate times, and they literally had the same face, like, what is he doing? So basically, from there, I was trying to figure out how to recreate a shoe, and potentially increase the value. And in the process of doing that, I said, wow, if we think about it, shoelaces have not been changed in I don't know how long. You have cotton laces, which every single pair of shoes has that in most cases. And then you have leather laces that are just hideous. And they're only used for like work boots and stuff like that. So my idea was, how can I create a lace that looks good on both sides? It's soft. We use exotic leathers, and how can I use this lace to help increase the value of the shoe, right, and the appearance, and give people an opportunity to express their fashion through their shoe in a different way. And that is where I had the first idea for my first business. And basically, at that time, that was the aha moment. Like, maybe this will work, so that I can convince other people that have not lost my mind.
No, one of the things I think is very interesting when you mention and you say, that was your first business, because one of the things that I hear a lot when just talking to people who either want to be an entrepreneur, who are entrepreneur, to believe that, hey, this one idea has to be the one that works. So how many businesses have you started or been involved in?
Right. Yes. So I've started two companies. After like me literally looking back at my life, at this point, I realized over time I was surrounded by business. I literally, my father, my uncle, my grandfather, and all of his five brothers literally all own local businesses. And that's kind of what led me to the next company. But basically, after I had gotten into it and I started to really, really understand business, I realized that, no wonder I was kind of bit by the bug, because it was in every corner of my life.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So now, other than the shoelaces, what were some of the other products with that business?
Yeah, well, actually, it's just mainly shoelaces.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
So,
Oh,
so
wow.
Italian lambskin. Occasionally, we would do different exotic leathers. Snake skin and stuff like that. We had a collection that was basically the vegan collection. It was branded at that time as the Eco Collection, and that was one of the lines that literally just got a ton of publicity.
Gotcha. So how
Yep.
was it like, getting publicity? Because you usually don't hear, probably before you started doing it, you didn't hear a whole lot talked about,
Right.
shoelaces. How did you
Absolutely.
go about, getting the recognition and publicity for something that most people probably weren't talking about?
Right. Yeah, that is so true. Honestly, I'd never heard it before I got into it. I never heard anyone talking about shoelaces. And so some of the things, that I've actually understood along the way that kind of really helped push me is just the mentality. For me, I was at a point where I didn't know much of anything. I didn't know much about business at all. But this made me curious and anxious enough to try so many different things. And I also had the energy, so that is what really started to propel me. And eventually we were able to land on Good Morning America, NFL Network, Foot Locker stores, and also about 40 plus athletes, and celebrities and athletes wearing them, some being like DJ Khaled, Kevin Gates, Antonio Brown, Jameis Winston, just a ton of athletes. McCourty, different, the McCourty twins, Marquise Goodwin, just a ton of people. And I think at the very beginning of it, it was just the things that I did was I just honestly I had this mindset that was just like, hey, go. If it makes sense, if you feel good about it, trust your gut, take a leap of faith, and just go, move forward, one step at a time.
Gotcha, gotcha. So now, coming forward in with the Lux brand, moving into the second business now, what really brought, or kind of what was the genesis of the idea for the second business?
Yeah. So actually, just being in a small area, I was in a small area. We're talking about Florence and Muscle Shoals, Alabama. For me to be at the time I was maybe about 23, 24 ish. And for me to be having that much success with a shoelace company. And it's so funny because I used to tell people, yeah, I make shoelaces just so I can get the reaction. But basically, being in that small area, it caught word very fast. And a lot of local businesses, just from me doing that, were starting to reach out to me and say, "Hey, Ryan, you've done a lot of really amazing things. Can you help us out?" And it's so funny because at, at that time, in my head, I'm just like, "Dude, I don't know what I'm doing," but I didn't realize how much I did know because I would look from my perspective. It was, "Hey, I'm just doing things. I'm just doing things." And there it was a system, certain things start to work a little more than others, and I was able to make a process from that. And basically, before you know it, I'm talking to people about their local businesses, and they're like, in my 30 and 40 years of business, I've never heard anything like that.
Wow,
And
wow.
and for me it's mind blowing because I'm just like, I didn't, I just started doing stuff. But along the way, I was able to start the process and systematize these things. And basically, we have a book coming out, by the way. I do want to mention that later on, but it's all of these processes that were I used to help me, and not only me, but my clients start to achieve those, similar success.
Gotcha, gotcha. So now for the second business, like how are you kind of managing just, the reality of juggling both?
Yeah, oh, that is a big one. So the biggest thing I like to tell people, there's no INT, and Rome was not built in a day, and it was not built by one person. So team is the big caveat there. So I believe in people, process, and platform. Okay, so the right people generate leads. They steer the ship. They provide. They employ the vision of the company, and they follow a process. So the right people follow a process, and they use platform to do it at scale. So people is that caveat there that basically allows you to start to juggle two different companies at once. And there's been a time where I didn't have that, and I definitely felt it every day, every single day. So, but when I started to finally understand the value of having a team behind you, and I started to understand the mentality of becoming a leader and not a boss, but a leader and leading them, then I was able to start to leverage things and start to build and grow and see the fruit of our collective.
Mhm. And then, I think it's interesting you use that analogy about, how Rome wasn't built in a day, because for years I've heard people say that. And then like a couple years ago, my wife and I, we actually went to Rome. And when I was there and I actually saw all that was built, like I knew that they had done great things. But it's just like to
Hmm.
see as much as they have built, and like it played right into what you said about, you know,
Hmm.
when you look at a lot of the structures, they had very consistent processes across
Right.
everything that they were doing. So it's just like they had people on the west part of the city building something which followed a very similar process and a pattern that they had people building on the east.
Yep.
So when it all came, we had all these people following consistent processes that made sense and that worked together. And when it
Yep.
all came together, you had this great city that everybody knows of Rome now.
Yep. That's right.
And I think that plays a lot into, like I said, what you talk about, like you said, building a business is just having the
Mhm.
people and the processes and making sure, like I said, being a leader, making sure it all works together. Now, I guess, with everything that you're doing with, with your businesses and getting out the recognition, do you find yourself now as a leader having to champion the brand recognition for it, or do you find yourself spending more time kind of laying out the vision for the team?
Ooh, I think, that's, I don't know if I can pinpoint which one I spend the most time on. It is a happy balance between both. I definitely know, for me, just like, for example, some of the recent things that has happened for me, I have to champion that, right?
Mhm.
um, but also that helps so many other factors that helps me bring people on, that helps their morale, they helps them understand the vision as well. So that's another thing. It's never just one fold where, hey, the recognition goes to me and that's it. No. So the recognition goes to me and I'm able to employ and let people know, hey, because of the teamwork, because of the people that are helping behind the scenes, we're able to overcome and conquer and do what we normally do at a more amplified level.
Mhm. And which brings me back to something that, like I said, the Yahoo article of, you being featured as a top 12 entrepreneur to watch for 2020. I mean, when that came out, what was the reaction of the team?
That yeah, so it's so funny because I actually had given some of my guys bonuses like maybe the week or two before, and they just have been working together so well, and I was just happy. One day I woke up and said, I'm going to give them a bonus. All right, so they were super thankful for it. But I had this joke where they were saying, "Hey, thank you." And I said, "Well, maybe you guys can send me my bonus. Send me a bonus." And since I'm getting it from so many of you guys, maybe it'll be a lot more than what I was able to give. But no, that's the type of culture and the type of environment we like. But they were ecstatic. I mean, it literally I could tell behind the scenes. You could tell that people were like, okay, we are playing ball now. We are playing ball, and it's so funny because one of the conversations that was had by Charlie was, hey Ryan, I don't know if I should, be. We were talking about some outreach stuff. He said, listen, let's just go to the top now. So there's no need to skip around and let's stay where we are. Let's just go ahead and go all the way to the top. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So, but it's really effective. It's really effective.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. So now when you think about, your businesses, like what do you see as like kind of the next goal for you and the team, and like what's the picture that you paint for them to aim for?
Right. So we definitely I want to actually be able to impact 100,000 plus businesses. And I want to basically be able to build a culture so solid that people are able to look at us and say, hey, I want to model my culture and the spirit of a business behind what BizBuzz and Luxe Brand is doing. So I think that's the ultimate goal there is to build such a strong, tight knit group of people who have similar goals, similar missions. And, honestly, the type of person I am is, you know, I love to see my people grow. And I understand that sometimes they grow into other paths and other areas, but I want to be able to say that, hey, I've impacted them and I've literally been the reason to pour into them so that they can actually feel extremely confident and whatever path they decide to go on, they can always credit, hey, the atmosphere that I came from is top notch. So I don't want anything less. I want something just as good.
Awesome, awesome. Now, we've done a great job of talking about, your background, talking about, the business story, the challenges, the victories. What I do want to do is I want to give a spotlight to, if someone wanted to do business with BizBuzz, what are the products and the solutions that they would be looking for?
Right, right. So basically, let me give you a background. BizBuzz, we provide integrated marketing automation software for small businesses. Okay. So what this looks like is we believe that there are 5 pillars to marketing, okay? And basically those pillars are wrapped around the modern customer journey. So as we know, there's so many things that are changing now at a rapid pace. But the first, so out of those 5 stages, you have, awareness, and usually that's the first thing that happens, right? So let's say a customer is going to walk through that customer journey. The first thing that usually happens is they find some type of awareness, right? So in the past, this has been maybe like a billboard or some type of TV ad or something like that. But now some of those things are not going away completely, but they're just being supplemented by digital stimulus. So now you got things like Facebook and Google ads. You have text programs, loyalty programs, email marketing, and stuff like that, right? So once that customer or prospect actually gets that first initial stimulus, the next thing they usually do is they pull out their phones and they search for the business, all right? And that phase is called listings, right, for local businesses. So your listings is important. You have things like, Google, Apple Maps, GPS search, voice search now. You want to make sure that you're findable online, all right? Now, that is also that stage of listings can be considered search, okay? So after that customer has pulled out their phone, and now since they have so much access to so much information, the next stage is research, all right? And in the research stage, what they're going to do is they're going to find everything that other people have to say about you. They're going to look at your reputation, right? So basically at that stage, obviously it's important to make sure that, people are saying positive things about you, and you're actually asking people to leave positive feedback as well, okay? And then that funnels on into the point of conversion, all right? And in most cases now, especially now, that can be the digital website. So that is where people are, getting their information online, and they're going to your website to convert, okay? And then the last stage is advocacy, okay? And that is basically at that stage where they share their experience, whether they loved the product or they hated the product, all right? So what our solution looks like is for all 5 of those stages, we understand that there are tons of options, and there's tons of options that don't connect with each other, and there's tons of time that has to be spent going from place to place and doing this and doing that and tweaking this and getting reporting here and mixing that reporting together with another place, right? So what we've done is we've created a full stack, basically one-stop shop solution that allows you to understand or do your own advertising, right? So through social media and Google, as well as manage all of your listings, right? So all the different places online your business is being listed at, manage your entire reputation, whether that's reviews, testimonials, mentions online, and all of that stuff. And then also, when you talk about the point of conversion as well, you can actually build your website by the click of a button in our platform.
Wow.
So then the last stage of advocacy, we also have a CRM that we've partnered with a company on, and basically that integrates. So all of it's connected, and now you don't have to go into 30 different places to handle those functions. And then the last piece is the reporting. All the reporting is, connected and integrated so that you don't have to, obviously, again, go to 15 different places to understand what's effective and where can you actually spend more money or less money and make the biggest difference. So the uniqueness about all of that is we also do services on top of that. So either we can give you the DIY tool so you can do it yourself, which we call it the Pro Toolkit, or we can pick up the ball, dive under the hood, and work with you to bring that your vision to life.
Okay, awesome. Now, if someone is interested in, buying the shoelaces, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so you can actually go to luxebrand.com. So it's LUXE hyphen brand, BRAND.com.
Awesome. Now,
And that's where you'll be able to get that.
if they're looking to do business with you on BizBuzz, where can they find you online, and where can they follow you on social media as well?
Absolutely. So BizBuzz is BIZBUZZ digital, DIGITAL.com. And that is where you can find me. And for my personal site, which kind of redirects you to different places. It's ryandmason.com. So RYAND as in dog, MASON.com. And lastly is there, I am releasing a book, and I would love to just chat about that for a second. But when we talk about, we mentioned this whole conversation, we talked about a lot of process, right? And I firmly believe in process because, like I said, the right people use a process, okay? So what I've been able to do is, along with me building my company and also helping 200 plus other businesses understand the effectiveness of marketing and also implement marketing strategies, I've been able to completely document the entire process from point A to Z. All right. And all of that is going to be in a book that I'm going to be releasing at the end of November. So there's actually going to be a early access. It's going to be for $1. So definitely make sure that you guys go and check that out. So you can get to that from my personal website at ryandmason.com. If you scroll down about halfway through the page, you'll see all the book details. And basically from there, you should understand the process that we use to help our clients.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, and also, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah. So my Instagram is my main channel, but that is at great GREAT underscore Mason MASON. So the great underscore Mason.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Awesome. Now, one of the questions that I like to ask before, we wrap up, and it's a question I ask all the guests that come on, is when you think about, your journey, the ups, the downs, the twists, the turns, the victories, the disappointments, all of it, what are two pieces of wisdom that you've picked up in your own journey that you think other entrepreneurs should know and embrace?
Right. Number one is successful people fail their way to the top. So many times we literally talk ourselves out of things because we feel like we can predict the future, and we can't predict the future. I can't tell you how many times that I literally walked away from a situation or thought about it and really pondered on it and then went and something crazy happened from it. So, we got to realize that, hey, successful people do fail their way to the top. So we got to challenge ourselves to actually do and try new things because once you fail at it, that does not mean that you're giving up. All right, there's a difference. So that's number one. The second thing, I would have to say, it's wrapped around just not giving up. I think so many of us, especially right now, we're dealing with this a lot with our local business clients, but we don't know what that outcome is again, and we don't know when our breakthrough is. So to say that in my own personal story, I could have given up several times. I could have decided to, hey, just go back and throw, lock the doors and throw away the key, but I didn't. And the second that I decided to not do that is when I started to see success. I started to put, one leg at a time and walk with one leg at a time. And I started to use what I had in front of me. So, my biggest thing is, successful people fail their way to the top and don't give up because
Awesome.
you never know the outcome.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate the opportunity to hear about your story. I mean, again, just an amazing journey of, like I said, going from the legacy of an NFL player to now a very successful and continuing to grow entrepreneur and leader. So definitely thank you for coming on to the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.